What's up, everyone? NanMans here, and we're going to be doing a post-ban list modern deck tier list today. So this is kind of doing the big tier list. I say big. We have like 30-some decks that we're going to talk about today because there's a couple of people that are just like, oh, here's the highlights, here's the top stuff. But if you have noticed anything post the ban, there's so many decks in Modern right now. So let's dive in and talk about some of these top decks. All right, so like I said, there's about 30-some decks that we're going to highlight. There are more decks than that in Modern. There are more decks that you'll see on MTGO, at your LGS, things like that. But I wanted to highlight and talk about kind of the big winners post-banning, as well as some of the losers, ones that have kind of fallen down a little bit more on the tier list. But a big thing to note is, in December we had the big shakeup. We had cards being banned, the One Ring, we had Gigantha, we had Amped Raptor, and then the 4 big cards that were unbanned. So, of course, Splinter Twin, Faithless Looting, Mox Opal, and then our Green Sun Zenith. So now we're going to be taking a look. This is January 2025. How is the meta shaped up? And let's kind of start things off. We do kind of our basic S is the best. All right, tier 1, top of the list, or tier 0. We don't really quite have a tier 0, but there are 2 decks in particular that I'm saying are the best decks currently in the meta right now. There are a couple right below it and very close if we're looking at that like in between stage here, and then we've got a lot in that kind of mid tier that have potential to take games, steal wins, do things like that, disrupt people, but might not be the best ones to go for here. So we'll kind of bounce around and show off a couple of ones. We'll do a couple of the all over the place lists, a couple of the local hero decks that we're going to highlight. And if there are decks that we have not included in this list, leave a comment, let us know, and we'll make sure to include it for the next time that we do an update for this. Most likely going to be put around March when the next ban list comes. We'll have to do another kind of assessment of what is going on in the meta. But should we just get the easy one? Everybody knows what the S tier is. All right, let's just drag it on up here. Yeah, energy's still number 1. Whether you're rocking Boros energy, whether you're doing the Mardu energy of it. I specifically picked Guide of Souls as our energy indicator because that was the card that you guys know in our recent commentary that I was pushing, hey, that should be the one that gets banned instead of Amp Raptor. The deck's still amazing. Will it Amp Raptor or will Amp Raptor be enough? It doesn't seem like it right now. Will Guide of Souls eventually go? That's kind of what it looks like, but we'll see how the meta continues to shape up. We got a few months to see how things go within the sphere of things here. So Guide of Souls, number 1 right there. One deck that I do want to talk about, Faithless Looting brought back some decks like Dredge. Arclight Phoenix is one of them. So let's talk specifically about those sort of like new cards that have kind of resurfaced, if you will. Arclight Fenus, we have seen it on camera a couple times on the channel. There has been some lists running around MTGO, so you guys can see a little bit of that. But really, it's a big stinker. It's not out of our tier list. If you're just going for a pure Arclight Phoenix build, you're going to have a bad time. It's still relatively easy to hate it out. It's got a lot of burst potential, and I do think that the hybrid or doing a variation within it, there's something maybe here. I haven't tested out the Rakdos version with Buried Alive and stuff like that. I feel like there might be something more with that, but it's still risky of like a lot of resources that you have to commit to hit a Buried Alive to, then be able to next turn jam 3 spells together. So I don't know. It's not really doing what we want it to be able to do here. So again, like if there's a lot of graveyard hate, which there kind of is because of some of the other top decks, Arclight Phoenix is not going to do so well, which kind of leaves us into our Dredge itself. I feel like Dredge is just slightly above Arclight Phoenix. Arclight Phoenix is very all in on its kind of game plan of what it's trying to do, where Dredge is weaker when there's more graveyard hate running around. So it's kind of still has that potential to do well and sneak in and do that big burst aggro style of like we've reanimated a bunch of things out of our graveyard, our prized amalgams, those types of deals and be able to push for high damage, but it's weaker right now. But it does have gotten a little bit of push up by getting back and getting that Faithless Looting to kind of help it out there. So did want to include that on our list. Couple other ones to note here. Mox Opal has kind of brought it back up here with some other decks, like Affinity is back from the dead, if you will. Now there are Lantern Control versions, and there really is starting to be like 3 different dedicated artifact pure decks. Now there are grinding station combos and things like that that are a step up from the traditional artifact decks. All right, so I'm going to have those be in almost separate categories of a pure combo build and are just kind of powerful artifacts that go together. So let's talk about a little bit of our Mox Opal decks here. I do feel like if we're looking at our Affinity base decks, Affinity and Harden Scales are both just sort of that solid middle tier there, like right smack in the middle. They're able to get wins. We were playing a Affinity list on MTGO. We were doing very well with that. Videos for those are going to be coming out on Saturdays in the coming weeks, so stay tuned for more MTGO content because we are an MTGO content creator, so you guys can be able to see all that kind of fun stuff. Harden Scales, again, very much a local hero at RLGS, but just the speed up that Mox Opal gives some of these lists, like that, and why Lantern Control has kind of come back up. I didn't put it on this list. I would put Lantern in C tier compared to the B tier of Harden Scales and Affinity, just because Affinity gets access to all those draw effects, right? Thought Monitors, Thought Scours, these extra ways to refill your hand. You have a big endgame threat with the Kappa Cannoneer. Mox Opal is just kind of speeding up your game plan to get to that end game and close out the game for your opponents. Harden Scales is very similar with the Mox Opal, just kind of speeding up how quickly we've seen the deck win as quickly and as early as like a turn 2 win, and it just kind of helps with that speed and power with Mox Opal going back in for Harden Scales. So be aware that those decks do exist. You'll see them, especially with players that are really skilled with those. Those are just kind of those, you know, sneak those wins in, can easily be able to have a positive record at an LGS as well as in leagues on MTGO. So I like those kind of just middle of the tier. There is a little bit more artifact hate out there right now. People are more aware of the Mox Opals, so we get access to things like Meltdown and stuff like that, especially with the red deck. So I do feel like that's one of those to just kind of be aware of. A lot of sideboards are going to be filled with graveyard hate and artifact hate right now. So if you're not on those two pathways, you might be in a better position here. But so that's a little bit of our kind of Mox Opal type of deal. Let's talk a little bit more about some other powerful decks that are running around here, shall we? Since so far we've got nothing in the A tier. Should we put something in there? Yeah, let's talk about Belcher. All right, Mono Blue Belcher kind of rose up there near the end as a way to kind of just fight against, you know, the power of energy and just be like, all right, I have counter spells, but I'm just trying to just go through it and just kind of ignore what you're doing and just try to win as fast as I can. And, you know, these kind of linear combo decks that exist, and they've always exist within Modern for all of the years that Modern's been around. So seeing something like this is really, really cool to be up there in one of the top decks. Yes, it does get hated out by some specific artifact hate and things like that and disruptions, but it's solid. It's one of those, like, A tier is going to be filled with a lot more combo based strategies because they have a better chance of sneaking in wins more consistently than the grindierness that is like, okay, Harden Scales has the combo win, but sometimes you got to grind a bit and the games go a little bit longer. Like Affinity is always grinding. You never are getting like that quick burst kill somebody, that because you don't have like the infect kills and things like that. So it's, you know, there's a lot more that you have to do in that B tier compared to the A tier there. Okay, so now we're starting to get at least a little bit more of a picture of what things are looking like with the meta. So let's kind of keep moving through. Like, again, if your deck's not on here, let us know. But here's some of the other, like, outliers, decks that might not see as much play. All right, we're putting Mill in there. I'm putting it at C. It's still above Arclight Phoenix because it's kind of along with that Dredge mentality of you are running main board graveyard hate oftentimes with Mill, surgicals, extractions, things like that, extirpates. Tasha's Hideous Laughter is an amazing card when people are starting to run more things like Mox Opals and low to the ground, low costed stuff that you can be able to just kind of exile and mill a lot of cards very quickly. You do need to be relying a little bit more on a kind of slow down ensnaring bridge plan if you're going for it. But again, it's like it has the ability to steal wins, but it's not going to be always in that positive record like the B tier is. All right. If I'm thinking if we have 5 rounds and you're sitting 3 and 2 for at least a B tier, all right. C tier is more often than not you're sitting at maybe like a 2-2-1 record or a 2-3 record. Like you're having a harder time, I feel like, in that kind of window of things. All right, so there's our mill strategy for all of the old school players out there, mill fans. Should we talk about Twin? Let's put Twin up here. Where's everyone thinking? Predictions? As much as I want to put it up in A tier, it's not an A tier deck. It's a B tier deck. It's I've seen bounties coming across the feeds on Twitter and stuff like that of people being like, "Hey, 100 tickets if you are able to win a league with this Splinter Twin and have the combo in there somewhere." Like it sneaks in wins. We have our video, our Is It Twin list comes out next Saturday for everybody that's watching, because we are doing more of that MTGO content on Saturdays. So we'll show you our Twin list then. We're going to show off our Jeskai list on camera soon. So there's a couple of lists that are running around. I don't know. I'm really interested in trying out the Grixis list with Frogtide in there. And like there's a cool bunch of different Frog lists running around right now that's like, I don't know. Frog's real good. So yeah, B tier. More likely than not, you're going to have a positive record. Right? More likely you're going to be able to combo and get some wins in there, or grind, or have the ability to, be sitting there. Like at RLGS, we do 4 rounds, and our Twin players have been sitting there like, 3-1 or 3-0-1. Like they're doing very, very well in their ability to kind of pilot these decks. As players figure that out more, they get more sideboard stuff in it, and you start to kind of understand how the combo works a little bit. It's not going to be #1 deck like it was back in the day. It's never going to reach there again. Sorry, Twin fans, but I'm just glad it's back. I just, look, I got my next set in. Just ordered another set, so I can do a Jeskai and an Is It list and have multiple Twin decks running around. That's how much I like the deck. But we did talk a little bit about Frogtide, so let's not, keep it hidden anymore. This is the other S tier deck that I was thinking of here. If we were thinking of just 2 decks as the number 1, number 2 decks out there, Frogtide, Oculus, Reanimation strategy is really, really powerful. Did find out, somebody was saying, no, Grafdigger's Cage shuts down the manifest ability because the creatures aren't able to like enter from the top of your library or whatever. So Grafdigger's Cage is surprisingly good against the Dimir list, but it's still like, I like it. Grafdigger's Cage, I've been starting to put it more back into my sideboards because of other strategies and other things that people are doing. There's some Green Sun Zenith running around again, so like you just kind of, hey, let's put a stop to that. But yeah, I definitely feel like that is energy, and Eyeball fighting it out is kind of the top tier of decks right now. Let's go through some of our other decks that we've got here. Grinding Station is really good. We've got some more combo stuff. Let's see, what are some other popular ones that we're running around a lot more? You can see a lot of my like lower tier Resurgence decks down here. This is one a lot of players have been talking about. We'll put it up here in A for everybody to kind of notice. It's that Indomitable Creativity, another combo-based strategy that we talked about. But with Faithless Looting back, it's a Jund Creativity list there. It used to be more of a blue base. Players were kind of going for like Teferi to help them out and do these little things with it and trying out some different lists. But you get now Persist. You get access to the Faithless Looting, so you can, if you have big creature, Archon of Cruelty and it's stuck in your hand, normally you're trying to creativity to get it out. You can now just dump that into your graveyard, persist, bring it back, and you're good to go. And so like that is, again, like that combo-y potential, A tier, perfect for it, looking great. Let's talk a little bit about our other combo-y stuff. Brood Scale combo is up here as well. It is a little bit harder to hate out than other strategies, and it's very quick about going about things. We talked about, you know, after the One Ring was banned, how will the Eldrazi decks pivot and pilot and do things? And I do feel like the Brood Scale is the best version of the Eldrazi decks that are running around. There's also ways that you could just kind of jam Brood Scale combo into other strategies with Green Sun Zenith and other, like, you know, green-based combo-y creature-based strategies. So like I think Brood Scale is up there in that A tier strategy, where Yogmoth is more of a B tier. I would have swapped that previously in previous years and things like that, but Yogmoth, it's still solid. It's still doing really well. It does improve with Green Sun Zenith getting unbanned, so we're seeing a little bit more of that. But again, it's another one that players have been fighting against the deck for so long. They know a lot more of the lines and how to fight against it, and so that's one that they're like, yeah, okay, cool, we see it, it's still here, it's still a top deck. It's going to be, again, in that category of more likely than not having a positive win record at your LGS or online, so be aware of that. I actually think Hollowone is a little bit higher up here. It's kind of like this in between, personally, but I do feel like Hollowone is slightly better right now because, yes, the Graveyard Hate exists, but it's such a resilient deck through Graveyard Hate where a lot of decks get really hurt by it. Right? If you're running a bunch of Graveyard Hate against a Yogmoth list, for example, and they can't utilize their Undying, they're in a lot more trouble. Where the Hollowone, you could just be like, okay, well, I'll just, you know, I guess I can't bring my Detective's Phoenix back from the graveyard, but I'll be able to just kind of land this Hollowone out. I'll be able to, you know, start pinging you down with our Orcish Bowmasters. I'll be able to use the Nethergoyf. So like, I feel like it's the one of the few decks that's in there that's slightly above the other decks. You know, at least the B tier stuff, at least from what I'm seeing and how I've been fighting it. Now that could change, right? We could see more players, you know, running a little bit of additional hate for it, and it starts to kind of drop back down to that B tier there. But it's like almost like a B plus A minus category. If there was an extra one in between these two, it would be kind of sitting right there. All right, let's keep going. Grinding Station decks are up here in this S tier as well. It's an amazing deck. There's a couple different variations of it. Mox Opal really showed you guys that there's a reason this card is $150 right now, and it's because of the Grinding Station list, because of the you know, the Affinity list wanting to play it, Lantern Control players. It's so many decks are wanting to play it, but the Grinding Station deck is doing it better than everybody else, right? You're going to be sitting here and just constantly reusing your artifacts, getting all these extra triggers, and there's so many different variations of it running around on MTGO that it's awesome that there's not really necessarily the #1 version of it yet. A lot of people are still trying to figure it out, but it is such a strong deck that it's really hard to kind of deal with. You do need a lot of hate to kind of shut it down and stop it from doing its thing. So I'm putting that up there in the S tier. Goros Vengeance is coming back up here, rising back up. But again, I do feel that's still more of a B tier deck. Doesn't have the same power that Hollowone got from having Faithless Looting back. Yes, it does get some extra potential in there, and you are seeing a little bit more power to it, but it's not going to be the same. It's not the old original where you're like Grizzlebrand, here's Borborygmos, I'm gonna do that style. Like we're past that point now. Trax is amazing, it's great, right? We like that plan, but it's a good deck. Again, we keep talking about Graveyard Hate being necessary, and that's one of those that is a necessary deck to be able to fight against. All right, shall we talk a little bit about our other combo-y decks? There's a couple more that exist in here. So I've put pretty much like everyone on there. You can see. So let's go through. We'll do like rapid fire of some of our other combo decks. Our Soul Trader combo deck is gonna. I'm putting that at C tier. Again, it is really good, and if you have a pilot that is really good with it, just like Dredge, just like Mill, they might be able to get a few extra wins. But in a normal, consistent weekly meta, it is not going to be sitting there and always on the positive. It's going to sometimes be in that kind of, yep, we're going to get those wins. Here's our 2 wins, but we might not be able to get the next 2 or the next 3 there. So like, it's good, it's fast, it's hard to kind of deal with sometimes, but right there in that kind of C tier there. Samwise combo. This is the food-based combo. You can sit here and go with your cat and just kind of sack it and just keep making food and stuff like that. That's, again, we're in the C tier for it. It's fine. If you like that, great. Pilot it. You can have so much fun playing these decks. It's exactly what you want to do. Same thing with our Heliad combo. All 3 of these, like, creature-based combo, you need 2 to 3 different pieces out there to kind of go. It doesn't have the same consistency that Yogmoth does, right? So it's like if you're just a pure Yogmoth list, you're going to be better off. If you're starting to dilute your list to be kind of adding these other things, that's sweet. You have multiple combo avenues, and you can kind of attack from different lines, but they're not always as powerful as the original stuff. So boom, boom, boom. Soul Trader combo, Samwise combo, Heliad, Selesnya life gain combos. Put them all in there. That's where they belong. They got to live in there. Let's see what other combo-y decks. I guess these 3 are not quite combo. They're all right. Let's get into it. Right, the Cascade decks. If we're just looking at Rhinos, all right. We've got Rhinos, Living End. I do feel like both the Cascades are right around that B tier. They're not good enough to be able to push it above that level there, but they're enough that, again, they're getting better. They're improving. I think that this is the Rhinos is right on that cusp between that like B+, A- list. Very close, very close. Not there yet. It's strong, especially if you're going for the more traditional like domain one, which we didn't separate the 2 out. We didn't have it on here. We already have like 30 some decks, and so we didn't put the domain specific. So I do feel like the domain is slightly better. I don't know if it's, you know what, let's do it. Let's push it up there. Domain Zoo is up there in the A. It's good. It's good. It's, again, that A-, so we're pushing it up there. Omnath hanging out in the B tier. Just solid. Elementals, you're, again, a pilot that's going to do really well was more likely than not going to have a positive record. They're not going to be up there and maybe sitting and fighting in that top 4 spot, maybe fighting over that kind of first, second place spot, but they are going to be a powerful deck to be able to fight against. All right, let's keep going. Oh, speaking of combo-y stuff, we almost missed it there. Ruby Storm, still A. Pilots that know it are going to do really well. Even pilots that don't know it, more likely than not, are going to be able to hit their combos and be able to get there. It can be hated out, and so it might start falling down a little bit, but especially if you're playing online, you're going to run into a lot of Ruby Storm, so be aware of that and how that's going to be factoring into things. All right, I put Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, in here because there's been some actual control lists, blue-white specifically, popping back up to try to fight against all of this stuff going on here. I've seen a couple 5-0 leagues with it, things like that, but it doesn't have enough legs yet to push it into the A tier. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, all you control fans. I'm one of them. I was rocking the Jeskai control for the longest time, but it's not there. Amulet, though, is up at A still. There are the variations of players running the Green Sun Zenith because it's extra tutor effects. You get a bunch of mana. Yeah, you could sit there and tutor up for a big old Primeval Titan. Or on turn 1, if you get like your land and you don't have an Amulet Titan, you can be able to tutor up a Dryad Arbor and things like that. A lot of players are doing that, which is cool to see Dryad Arbor getting play again. But You know, that's one of those. Yeah, Amulet, A tier, super good. Kind of that next tier above a lot of our lists. Especially with the pilots that know it, they're going to be able to do very well with the Green Sun Zenith list. So I expect to see that again running around, doing different variations of it. We'll see where they land on and what numbers they go for the Green Suns and how many and things like that. But all right, let's keep going through. Colossal Hammer decks are back. We're seeing it. But they're not that great. Sorry, C tier. That's you know, I think I do feel like it's because, you know, Infect's still there, because it's 10 damage added on to whatever creature you have equipped with your hammer. It's a lot to deal with, but it's not, again, good pilots will do well with it, but it's not enough to push it up. Burn, just the traditional burn is also on here. We're putting that in C tier. Same thing with prowess. Hey, you awesome. In fact, good job. You guys can live together and that kind of, we're going to get some wins, but we might not get 3 wins tonight. We might just get 2 and go 2-2. So all these decks are fine. Again, if you're really good with the decks, you like the decks, play the decks. You're going to have fun. That's the whole thing about the Modern right now. You're going to have a blast being able to play those decks. Speaking of other decks to play, Merfolk. Merfolk is C+, B-. It's like right in this cusp of things. I'm going to put it up here at the front of this. I'm putting it up at the front. It's number 1 of the C tier. Sorry, Merfolk players. I like the deck. I do. But I don't feel like it's, when people are sitting here and comboing and doing crazier stuff, your clock isn't as consistent and as fast as you might want it to be, and that is the challenge with it. So let's go through our big mana decks. We saved those for last. Traditional Tron or Tron Eldrazi of it is just a solid B tier of it. We've talked about Brewscale is really the best version of Eldrazi. The second best is, if we're thinking about our Eldrazi ramp, I'm putting it up there in that category. And then our Through the Breach combo is sitting at solid B tier. I put Underworld Breach in here, but then I just added in the grinding station, so it's the same thing. All right, we know that it's up here. Should we put it there so everybody knows? No, we don't need that there. That's not on here. It's not here. All right. But yeah, that's our tier list. Do you agree with it? Do you think that these are the top decks? Should it be a little bit more diverse? Did I miss your deck? I try to include everybody. Here, we'll keep it up there. So if people screenshot and be like, what the heck is he talking about? Underworld Breach. This is our breakdown. Here's the Underworld adventures for everyone to kind of keep track of and see for it. Energy number 1. All right. Oculus also number 1. And Grinding Station decks. Those are our 3 tier 0 best decks in the format right now. And then right below it are a lot of combo-based decks. And then below that is kind of the fair decks, which is weird to think of like Splinter Twin being a fair deck, but it is. Like, compared to what other people are doing, it's a little bit more fair. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, we're going to be doing more of our MTGO content coming out every Saturday. We've also got every Monday and Thursday more modern gameplay action for you guys to be able to enjoy. But that's going to do it for us here today. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching, everybody, and I'll see you all next game.